Okay guys, today's video is on chromosomes and cell division, and we're going to be talking about what a chromosome is, what it's made of, and then we're going to be talking about the process of mitosis, specifically as we're referring to cell division. Now there is another type of cell division. So cell division literally means dividing of cells. And there are two types, mitosis, which we're going to be talking about today, and meiosis, which is something you might have come across if you are a year 11 student reviewing this. It's something that you're going to be doing if you're in year 9 or year 10. And meiosis is sexual reproduction. So it's making sperm cells and egg cells, and it only happens in the sexual organs. So it's making sex cells, or gametes, as we'll call them later on. Mitosis is important for two reasons: for growth and repair, which we'll talk about more in a second. And it happens in body cells, which more commonly are referred to biology as somatic cells. So growth and repair, we're talking about mitosis, but if we're talking about sexual reproduction, we're talking about meiosis. But both are types of division of cells, where one cell divides to become multiple cells. Okay, so we're just going to briefly talk about what a chromosome is, firstly, and clear up a few misconceptions. Chromosomes are made up of DNA. So when we look at a picture of a chromosome in a textbook, we often see this diagram here that I've drawn, but we sometimes see this structure here. Now, we also might see chromosomes, I'll draw this in a different color actually, we also might see chromosomes appear in pairs, like this. Now, this is really important. A chromosome is essentially just a divisible unit of DNA. The DNA condenses really tightly around tiny little structures called histones, little tiny proteins that it sort of wraps around. And as it wraps around and becomes coiled and condensed, it then forms this kind of tightly knit structure, which is this thing, the chromosome. So what that does is it compacts all the DNA and puts it in like a package so it can be moved about and transferred. Because when cells are splitting, which is the only time that you'll see a chromosome, if you're going to get one cell and we want to copy it or put chromosomes or put DNA into other cells, it's really difficult to move DNA unless it's organized. And that's what a chromosome is. It's kind of organized DNA. It's tightly wound, allows it to be transferred and moved around. So on the chromosome, we might sometimes see in textbooks or diagrams kind of little bands like that. So if I draw this chromosome a bit larger, you might kind of see a band. And what that's representing is a gene. You'll do more about this when we cover DNA later on and what DNA is and how it works. But for now, let's just take DNA as being a code, a sequence of information that is kept in the nucleus of the cell, which we covered last lesson. And it allows kind of our characteristics stored as genes, which are kind of sets of information to be stored within it. So this gene, this section of information, will code for a particular characteristic, and we'll learn more about how that works, as I say, down in a subsequent video. Okay, so what's the difference between these two though? This one on the left here looks like it's doubled up, whereas this one on the right looks just like a single section. So one single chromosome looks like this. But before a cell duplicates, before it divides in one of these processes here that we were talking about, what happens is it duplicates and copies itself. Now, if you're doing triple biology, you might have kind of discussed with your teacher the idea of these two being what are known as sister chromatids. Now, all that is a duplicate of a single chromosome. That's more of an A-level term there. What we're saying here is, if we had a copy of a book, let's say Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, then we've got another identical copy of that book here, Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. We've got two copies of it, okay? But remember, chromosomes come in pairs. We get one chromosome from our mum and one chromosome from our dad. So what we've got here are a duplicated pair of chromosomes. But this red chromosome on the right here is a different book. This is The Prisoner of Azkaban, and we've got two copies of it. So for every chromosome that we will have a complementary chromosome. We call a homologous chromosome. And again, this is getting a little bit into A-level detail. But what that is essentially the mum's copy and the dad's copy. The maternal copy and the paternal copy. So before these pairs of chromosomes divide, they have to all duplicate, and they undergo that replication where all the DNA replicates, all the DNA duplicates, and they become these kind of duplicated pairs, or duplicated sister chromatids, you would refer to at A level. So we've got now all of the genetic information kind of duplicated and doubled up, because if we're going to go from one cell to two cells, then everything that's inside here has to double up. So we've got two identical copies. And that's part of this importance of mitosis. If we're going to grow, if we're going to make lots of cells that are the same as the cells we've got to build on more cells and like building blocks, build them up, we're going to need all the cells to be genetically identical. Or vice versa, if we're going to replace cells that have become damaged and repair, we're going to need the new cells to be exactly the same as the old cells that are broken or damaged. So we have to make sure that the new cells are exactly the same as the old cells in mitosis. So we often refer to the old cells as the parent cells and the new cells as the daughter cells. And all of them have exactly the same genetic information. So they're all clones of each other, which is important. Now, this genetic information is organized in the same way, but remember, it's not just the DNA that needs to replicate, it's also all the other stuff that's inside the cell, namely all the organelles that we talked about in the first video I made. So in mitosis, everything divides and duplicates, and we make everything again. So that's all of the mitochondria, the ribosomes, everything that's needed in order to duplicate.